The Old School Rewind Podcast. The podcast about breakdance music.
So why is it got to be so damn tough?
Hip-hop and old school. The roots of electronic music. The Roland 808 and freestyle. This is the Old School Rewind with Randy Bubba Black on the Podcaster Online Network, Facebook.com. Search Old School Rewind and subscribe now at iTunes with all links at oldschoolrewind.com.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa. Rewind!
You say a one for the trouble, two for the time. Come on, y'all, let's break this.
3,000 downloads and just 18 new episodes. Better than nothing. We're going to keep bringing it to you. Alrighty, the holidays are here. It's the Friday before Christmas, 2018, and one of the craziest years on record for us as life goes. We'll talk to Stevie B, the king of freestyle. Did you know there was a little beef between Stevie B and Pitbull? Maybe Pitt needs to turn up the rewind and listen. On this week's Rewind, hello to the Egyptian Lover. We're going to revisit his studio. Analog all the way around, are you?
I'm in the studio right now with analog equipment.
What are you running in there?
I got two 808s. I got a vocoder. I got a Jupiter 8. I got a SH101, Juno 60, just all analog gear.
So the vocoder, it's one of the slickest vocoders heard ever. Is this the same one you've used always?
Yeah, same one.
What kind of vocoder?
It's a SVC 350 by Roland.
Do they still make those?
Nah, man.
How about a plug-in that even mimics it?
You can't get close to it.
Right.
This is the only one. I tried to talk them into making a boutique version of it, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I asked them about it, and they said they might.
Same type of thing that Miami found? Is that the same kind of vocoder that a lot of that stuff that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The freestyles of the world. And
Yep, that's it. Pretty Tony had one.
Pretty Tony, sure.
Actually, Pretty Tony saw me at a club in Miami, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, man, can you tell me the equipment you're using?" And I told him the Jupiter 8 and what kind of vocoder, and I think he went out and bought it the next day.
We have a problem on channel 16. I believe it's an uncalibrated calculation and syncopation circuits.
Track 24 reporting an uncontrollable low frequency beat. We can't seem to locate it.
Track 14 trying to maintain proper stabilization on this channel without creating a situation of overmodulation.
Well, and I didn't know that Luke Skywalker's was one of your jump-offs, too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a promoter, and he actually booked me for a show, and I went out there and rented an 808 and showed him how to program the 808, and right after that, he booked Two Live Crew, and he actually joined their group and became an artist instead of a promoter.
Word. 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 Word.
We get the red carpet treatment because we're well respected. Always accepted and never rejected. Difference is made when we take the stage. The crowd gets excited and goes in a rage because we're too live is what we are.
You got tentacles out everywhere. You're a lot like Lonzo. You and Lonzo got the tentacles everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They hadn't found their 808 yet, and I think did you have anything prior to the 808, or it was?
No, that was the first thing I got. I mean, I didn't even know a drum machine existed.
Right.
And Africa Islam, told me that Planet Rock was made with a drum machine. I'm like, a drum machine? What is that? He was like, man, they have them at the Guitar Center. So we went down to the Guitar Center the following weekend, and I saw the 808 and programmed the Planet Rock beat, and then Ultra didn't change it and said, wow, this sounds like a record. I need to make a record with this. So I had to get it, and that's when I had the 808. So I was like one of the first ones, especially one of the DJs who had an 808. I brought it to a sports arena dance with 10,000 people and actually played it. I was kind of nervous when I played it, but I played it in front of 10,000 people right on the breakdown of Planet Rock, and all 10,000 people kept dancing. And a few people was asking, what song is that? What song is that? And I was like, They think it's a record already, so it must sound good. Then I changed the beat and broke it down and kept going. And they just loved it. And even a promoter who was running the Uncle Jam's Army, Roger Clayton, walked up to me and said, man, what song is that you're playing? And I pointed to the drum machine and said, what's that? I said, it's a drum machine. And I started playing the cowbells and the hi-hats. He says, man, that sounds good. And I got on the mic and started going, yes, 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 yes. And everybody started repeating after me, and it was just incredible. It was wonderful to see 10,000 people dancing to a drum machine, which was unheard of back in '83.
You're absolutely right. And on Yes, 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 the layers, I mean, even the chorusing effects in the background of Yes, 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 in addition to the high pitch part of it, not just a low pitch of a vocoder, then you just had some chorusy stuff too, correct?
Yeah, we was just having fun in the studio, seeing what we can do.
And what does it mean to play half speed Planet Rock?
I mean, I heard it, and then I slowed it down in my head and said, I'm going to do a song like this. And I slowed it down in my head and played it with the keyboard, and it sounded great.
And what song did that end up being for you?
Egypt.
See, that's an incredible thing. And you know who else I had an interview with that was just real heady? I want to call you a heady guy. I've watched a lot of your interviews, and you're very astute. You're very well spoken. Not to say that anybody else is any less spoken that I've interviewed, but you and Cosmo cared about the sound and that technical side. And it really sounds in the music, not really, you really can hear on the other side. Self-taught, or are you a pick up a manual guy, or are you a punch it out because I'm savant? I got something in my head that, I can play anything.
Yeah, the later. I just pick it up and start playing with it, and whatever come out. I mean, I never picked up the directions to the 808 to this very day, but I learned pretty much everything about it, even more than what they thought was in it. I learned about this one trigger out called the accent, and we accidentally plugged it in one day in the mixing board and heard this electronic pulse. And actually EQ'd it and made it an instrument, and programmed it on the 808 and used it on Egypt. And that's the little electronic click sound you hear in Egypt. And even the people at Roland did not know that sound came from that drum machine. So it was something that I didn't learn from reading any manual. Of course, it wasn't on YouTube back then. It was just an accident that happened, and it was just a great accident.
It's crazy because everything's on YouTube now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, everything. There probably shouldn't be any more colleges because you can learn anything you want to learn on YouTube.
I have a kid that's getting up on 30, and he had a friend that is very successful and taught himself everything he knows in his field by learning on YouTube. My kid learned how to play guitar by learning tabs. He didn't go to guitar lessons. He picked up tabs, and he could play the guitar. It's just a whole different thing, man.
It's a new way of learning.
I had to put the pennies on the stylus and make sure them shits didn't fall off.
Exactly.
Trying to heavy up. What was the triple threat scratch?
That was something I had to learn. Make a long story short. A promoter wanted me to DJ at one of his clubs, and I didn't know how to DJ. I just knew how to pause button mixtape.
Sure.
So I went home and I borrowed somebody else's turntable because I only had one turntable, and I had to learn how to do pause button mixtapes on two turntables. So one of my friends and my little brother said, why don't you play the right turntable and then have the left turntable follow it. So like if the song said dance, then the right turntable go dance, have the second turntable on the left side follow, so dance. And then my brother said, while the second one is playing, rewind the first one with your hand and then bring the mixer back over and make it go dance for the third time. So we tried it, dance. And then my other friend named Dwayne said, yeah, we're going to call it the triple threat. So he kept saying, do the triple threat. So every part of the record, I would do the triple threat. And that's the mix we came up with. So it's really a pause button mixtape mix that I had to create to recreate.
Wait a minute.
The pause button tapes.
I was trying to recreate some pause button stuff, and it was so difficult in a digital. Not at all, right? Just threw it right together and thought, man, the
tapes just had their own sound. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, that certain fatness. Who was the first person to pay you to play that first gig, and how much was it, and how heavy was that damned equipment?
Well, I didn't bring no equipment. I brought some records to my first gig, and that was that one guy. He said, I'll give you $500 to do what's on this tape at my show. So I learned how to DJ. Took me a while to learn how to DJ. Got all the triple threats down, get the beats down, bought some records. He gave me $500. I showed up. He said, I don't want you to DJ. I want you to do the rap that's on this tape. I'm like, that's all? So I got on stage, did one song, $500, and my uncle was like, wow, that's paid right there. And that was back in 1981.
And you carry no equipment? Equipment's there?
Yep.
So you showed up and did the pause mix and talked over?
Well, I tried to do the pause break. He didn't want me to do that. He just wanted me to rap. So I was like, wow, I learned how to DJ for nothing, but I'll just go ahead and do this easy little rap. So I did the rap. Then, of course, the DJing came in helpful times later on when I joined Uncle Jam's Army, and like, well, I know how to DJ as well, so let's do this.
Rest in peace to
Roger Clayton, yes.
Uncle Jam's Army, about as influential in that Freak Beat logo. Who came up with that Freak Beat logo?
That was me. I was in the room just drawing around, and I wanted something that said something about beats. And there was a song called Funky Soul Makossa.
The awesome, the awesome, we'll rock ya. To the funky Makossa now. Well, it's the Gucci jazz with the razzle jazz, so do that funky Makossa. Yeah, with the awesome soul. Get on down. Well, I'm a mastermind and I'm one of a kind, so do that funky Makossa. Yeah, with the awesome soul. Get on down. Well, I'm MCAK, take you all the way, so do that funky Makossa. Yeah, awesome.
On the B side, they had a bonus beat called Free Beats. But I misread it when I first heard it, and I called it Freak Beats. And I always played Freak Beats at the parties, and everybody loved that ding, ding, ding. It was just so cool. And later on, I heard it said Free Beats. I'm like, oh, what? Well, nobody said Freak Beats, so I'm going to name this label Freak Beats. And so I named the label Freak Beat, and I drew it, and that was that.
When you hear those touch tones in your head.
Hello, baby.
The fun time I had in the studio making that. I mean, we was using every kind of idea we had in our mind just to make this record. Me and Roger was in the studio, me and him going back and forth with ideas. Pretty much 90% of my ideas made it to tape, about 10% of Roger's ideas made it to tape.
Hello, baby. What's the scene? Can I come pick you up in my limousine? Just ain't nobody bad like me. I make you break freaking BT.
He was really into the funky sound, like the Parliament Funkadelic sound, and I was really into the Planet Rock Kraftwerk sound. So, of course, I went out in the studio and made Dollar Freak and Yes, Yes, Yes. And I told him that we'll do the funky stuff later, and we never got around to doing that.
So you took on the Chic. How did the Chic's music start finding itself to your keyboard? How did the Egyptian music?
Well, I always liked it. I mean, watching Bugs Bunny and all that stuff, I always liked that kind of music. I watched this one belly dance special that was on TV. It came on like an after school special, and it was like, wow, this is so cool, and I love that music. And I always heard that, and the girls would say, there's a place in France where they do the naked dance, and the men don't care because they have no underwear. And that just goes into my freakness, so I always had that in my mind. So, of course, Egypt, I have to put that melody in there, and it was just all good.
How's your process now in the studio? You go analog, most of it, and then you get the sounds you need, and then eventually it does make digital.
Yeah, we bounced it down to Pro Tools, which is a digital. It's like the studio standard right now. So instead of using tapes, we use Pro Tools, and that's the only thing we use is digital. Everything else is analog.
Fighting and screaming, do you use it, or do you realize it's necessity now?
It's a necessity. We tried to use the tape, and it was too much of a problem. So the noise was one thing. I mean, it sounded more bottom end.
The noise and the generation loss is the most, isn't it?
Yeah, as it just took it to a level that wasn't today's sound. So in order to get today's sound with the old music, I had to put the analog stuff onto Pro Tools just to keep that quality up there now.
In my little small town, in the day, the Freak was a Vato couple, get up together and start doing that Freak. Who coined Freak, and how did you start using it as a colloquialism for beautiful things?
Well, everybody had Freak even way before that. I mean, George Clinton had not just Needy, she was the Freak of the Week. Everybody was using Freak. Freak of the Week. I mean, you was a freak. You were the Freak of the Week. You were the finest ones I saw all week. So that's how we grew up thinking about it. Then Rick James had Super Freak, and, everybody had a song with Freak in it. And so we knew that girls were freaks. So we did Uncle Jam Army did parties, and we just had invited the freaks, all the freaks come out. And so we had beats for the freaks. So that's why I made Freak Beat record label. And I Need a Freak came out with sexual harassment. Everybody thought it was me, but it was sexual harassment.
In these times of hate and pain, we need a remedy to take us from the rain. I need a freak with curly hair. When I need this freak, I need her to be there. I need a freak.
Freakaholic. I did that one. And just
All of my life, I've been a freak, doing what I want to, 7 days a week. Egyptian lover, yeah, that's my name. Sexaholism is my new game, 'cause I'm a freakaholic, a freakaholic.
it was a good time growing up because we had Michael Jackson, Rick James, and Prince, and I think those idols were just so wonderful for me to have and see at that time as young men doing their thing, being so creative, and me trying to get that same creativity that they had in my music. So I always went to the pro studios. I would call different studios and say, you know, is Michael Jackson, Rick James, or Prince recording there? And one guy said, yeah, Prince is here this week. I said, really? Can I book the studio right after him? And they said, sure. So I booked the studio right after him and told the second engineer, don't change any of the settings on the equipment. I want to use the same settings. And I went in and recorded and used the same settings. So it was pretty cool.
What were you recording?
The Lesbian.
The Lesbian. I ran that back the other day. I remember that was sort of shocking to see that title, man, in those days. Set it regular, and then in the middle, you sort of change it up a little bit.
Yo, I met this gorgeous chick the other night, man. And she drove me to this nice motor inn. Dig it. You know what the name of the place was? The Lesbian. Have you always been like this? In the beginning, we were all created equal. What happened to her?
It seems like you smile a lot here. On videos I've seen, you don't smile much. Do you not like cameras?
I like pictures, but I don't like video.
You called the 808 your record.
Yeah, the 808 is everything, man. Without the 808, I don't think I would be still doing what I'm doing. I absolutely love DJing and playing this 808 at shows. And that people just, when they hear that 808 analog sound live out them speakers, they lose their minds. And I want to keep on doing that till the end of time.
Egyptian lover, what's your mama call you?
Greg.
How do you say that last name?
Broussard.
Yes, Broussard.
Yep. It's a French name with a Creole background.
Did your parents think you were crazy? Did you have to take a little crap from, say, Pops?
Oh, yeah. My father actually told me, he says, you're not going to make any money being a DJ. I know a DJ, and he's flat broke. He says, you're not going to make any money being a DJ or doing what you're doing. Try to find you a better job. And then when he saw the first 3 or 4 checks come in, he's like, all right, you're doing good. Do what you got to do.
Egyptian lover, what a cool cat. On the Old School Rewind, where we're a week away from Christmas, and we play the first gold rap single from Curtis Blow. Christmas Rappin' was sampled and is now a throwback song. You know the song from Next. Here comes the song that not only went gold, but provided that hook for them. Created by Curtis Blow. Enjoy your holiday, and let's rewind with some of the Old School Rewind's best. When you put those songs out, the early songs, now, and I'm talking, let's...
Don't you give me all that jive about things you wrote before I was alive. Cause this ain't 1823, ain't even 1970. Now I'm the guy named Curtis Blow.
The Christmas rap.
Christmas rapping, and then if someone recut that in the 90s, I can hit, that's
Yes, Next, with the song called Too Close.
Is that paying you well these days, that particular song?
Yeah, and an incredible payday. They hit hard. I think they went double platinum or triple platinum with that song. It was the number one song. Billboard's the number one song of the year. I think it was 92 or something like that. But yeah, big shout out to the group Next, man. Nice guys too. Incredible. Baby, don't you like it? Nice song. A lot of sin in that song, but it's a good song.
You know, and it's still spinning in recurrent on these, what they're calling classic stations now. It's one of the reasons that I started doing the podcast is because they're calling classic year 2000 now. And then they're calling the 90s. You know, the 90s are even classic. Well, no, classic to me is going to be Cold Crush.
Fresh, 'cause I'm the best. And I get wild when I'm wild. I never get past 5, 'cause I'm fly. And I'ma put you on hold, 'cause I'm bold. And Charlie Chase will last, 'cause he's fast. And Tony Tone got full, 'cause he's original.
Gonna be Love Bug, gonna be Cool Herc, you.
Don't you give me all that jive about things you wrote before I was alive. 'Cause this ain't 1823, ain't even 1970. Now I'm the guy named Curtis Blow, and Christmas is one thing I know. So every year, just about this time, I celebrate it with a rhyme. Gonna shake it, gonna bake it, gonna make it good. Gonna rock, shock, knock it through your neighborhood. Gonna read, gonna sing it till it's understood. My rapping about to happen like a knee you been slapping, or I told you been tapping on a hunk of wood. Bought a red suited dude with a friendly attitude and a slave full of goodies for the people on the block. Got a long white beard, maybe looks kinda weird, and if you ever see him, he can give you quite a shock. Now people, let me tell you about last year when the dude came flying over here. Well, the hawk was out, snow was on the ground. Folks stayed in to party down. The beat was thumping on the box, and I was dancing in my socks. And the drummer played at a solid pace, and the taste of the bass was in my face. And the guitar player laid down the heavy layer of the funky chunky rhythm of the disco beat. And the guy with the 88 started to participate, and I can sure appreciate a sound so sweet. We were all in the mood, so we had a little food and a joke and a smoke and a little bit of wine. When I thought I heard a hoop on the top of the roof, could it be it wasn't me? I was feeling super fine, so I went to the attic where I thought I heard the static on the chance that the fans was somebody breaking in. Put the noise on the top with a reindeer drop, just a trick, Saint Nick, and I let the sucker in. And I said, holy moly, you got a lot of wishes on your chinny chin chin. He allowed, he was proud of the hairy little crowd on the point of his door where the skin should have been. Gets cool for a fool, going out every you for a day on the sleigh when the cold winds blow. So the beer may be weird, but I'll never have a cheer, 'cause it's warm in the storm when it's 10 below. I said, yo, Rod, it's cold tonight, but can you stop for a drop before you go? He said, why not? If the music's hot and I'll chance a dance beneath the mistletoe. So he went downstairs and forgot his scares, and he rocked the spot and danced like a pro. And every young girl tried to rock his world, but he booked the oogie till he had to go. And before he went, this fine old gent bought a gift with a zip through his big red bag. In the top or the bottom, he reached in and got him toys for the boys, for the girls' glad rags. And the grown-ups got some presents too. A new TV and a stereo. A new Seville, about as blue as the sky. The best that money couldn't buy, 'cause money could never ever buy the feeling. The one that comes from not concealing the way you feel about your friends. And this is how the story ends. The dude in red's back.
The first gold record in rap right there, Christmas rappin', Curtis Blow. If that don't put you in an old school Christmas mood, thanks for being on the podcast. Front of the show, I mentioned that Stevie B had some words for the guy who calls himself Mr. 305. Stevie B is the original Mr. 305. There's some animosity there, and Stevie was not afraid to mix his words. Let's get back to the rewind. Stevie, tell me about Because I Love You.
I heard that record in 1986, and I only heard the first verse of it. So when Warren played it to me at the time, of course I wasn't pop ballad interested at that time, and I always told him when he played it for me on the piano, I said, Warren, one day that record's going to be big. You're going to be big, man. Trust me. And Warren was, I don't know, he don't like me to say, but Warren was manic depressant. So, I would catch him from time to time crying, this and that. And of course he wanted to make it. And I said, man, you're good, man. You're going to make it one day. I said, you're a great writer. So, by this time, he and I had split up as a writing team. I did a record with him called Boy Toy on Macola Records out of California, Don McMillan. And Warren and I put it out as a group called Friday. But it didn't make much noise at all. And then I didn't see Warren for about 3 years. And I was gone on to be successful. And I got a phone call one day, and somebody said, Warren is in the hospital, and he was suicidal, and there's all this kinds of stuff. And I said, well, where is he? And he says he's down in Tampa, and the label said this guy's trying to get in contact you, and they want to call you. His name is Warren Brooks. And I said, wow, it's Warren. And I called the hospital, and I talked to him, and he was a little down. He said, Steve, I don't have no money, this, and I'm, depressed. He said, I hear your records on the radio all the time, and, I apologize, whatever happened between us and that kind of stuff. So I said, well, what do you need? He said, well, I don't have nothing. I said, what happened to all the songs and stuff you did? He said, man, all that book of all those songs, I threw them in the trash. I said, no way, dude, you're good. At that time, that was right before the Love and Emotion album. So I was getting ready to do that third album. So I said, what do you need? He said, I'll send you a keyboard. So I bought a keyboard from Sam Ash, and I flew it down to him. And then I bought him a little drum machine so he could have something. And I said, well, ask the hospital. I said, well, then what does he need to get out? What does he need to do? And by that time, I had a place called B-Land down in Lauderdale, out in Davie. And I said, well, I'm on the road right now. I'm on tour. But what I'm going to do is I'll call my groundskeeper and the people that's running the studios. I said, I'm going to send you to my house. You're going to recuperate at my house. So, excuse me. So I sent him down there, and he recuperated. And he wrote 7 songs on that album. Excuse me, 1 second.
Take your time, Stevie. Take your time.
So his pain came out in that album. And I said, Warren, I want to do the Because I Love You song. I said, can you remember it? He said, yeah. He said, I'll never forget that song, Steve. So we did that song. And that song made him a millionaire. He changed my life, and I changed his life. It was the best. He was the best then. I mean, if you listen to that Love Emotion album, if you go in to look at the credits, he wrote 7 songs in that album. 7. He Broken Hearted, Love and Emotion, practically all of them. He was a dynamo, and he went there, he recuperated. He went to the hospital, he got his medicines correct. And he went on. I mean, it changed his life. But we hadn't seen each other for 3 years before then. And I said, you go to my place, and you're going to go down there. And he stayed there, and I tell you, the universe has a way of putting people together, the right combination of things. You understand? And he did, and it changed his life. And he changed my life. He gave me the biggest record, chart-wise that I've ever had. Chart-wise, the biggest record I've ever had. And I love him to this day. He's still a friend. I talk to him, and he's doing well. And he's a blessing to me.
Thank you, Stevie. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I got your letter from the postman just the other day. So I decided to write you this song, just to let you know exactly the way I feel, to let you know my love's for real, because I love you, and I'll do anything. I'll give you my heart, my everything, because I love you. I'll be right by your side, to be your light, to be your guide.
I guess Pitbull came to you and you guys redid the classic Spring Love together? Now,
yeah.
Does that make you any more money based on the way things have changed? Did Pitbull get you put up set on that record so you could enjoy some of the marks too, some of the points?
Pitbull, Stevie B, Spring Love. From the minute that I seen you, I was sweating you like a freshman, just a senior. I couldn't even sleep, waiting for the next day just to see you, girl, just to see you. When you walk by my heart, skip the beat like a scratch CD. I was knee deep in the 4 letters L-O-V-E, sprung on spring love. Damn, she got me.
I remember when we first started. You came to me and you were broken hearted. I took you in and wiped all your tears away. I gave you loving more than any other gave. Don't you know I'm the one and I love you, girl. I don't care what they say, you know you are my world. Come back home to the one who loves you more and more. So you see that it was me you were searching for.
You know, it did not.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I'll say it this way, you know, I love Pitt and I appreciate his success, but, you know, he approached me and he grew up in Miami. He approached me to do the record. And he said, Stevie, I grew up on a diet of Miami Sound Machine and Stevie B. That's what he told me when he called me.
Sure.
And I said, really? You know, and this was before he kind of like blew up. I say 09, and then going into 08, 09, 10. Pitt was still doing those, the dance track, and he would have features of everybody. He was trying to find a lane, and he found it. And then, of course, and I think he was going through some changes with ATV, the label, and things like that. And I thought he would do more to help promote it. And at that time, and I'll just say that, and I love Pitt, but you just got to tell it like it is. He dropped the ball.
Gotcha.
He dropped the ball. Where he could have, like I did to Warren, because at that time, you know, we needed that. We needed somebody to come from our ranks, from our loins, to bring us up, just like the rappers do with all of their old school people. It's just for some reason they won't embrace us. They won't take us. The old schoolers, we need that to keep us relevant. I mean, he could have sent me to a whole nother tax bracket by embracing the record that he asked me to do. But he got bigger and bigger and bigger. He didn't help me with the record. I tried hard. I tried to push it in there, you know, and and I reached out to him. And like I say, he was excited about it at one point. And then all of a sudden, you know, he went up into those degrees, into those dimensions. But you know, the higher you get sometime with your charity, you know, on top of that mountain is an ice cap, you know. And your heart needs to stay warm for that water to reach down back to the valley. And at that time, I really needed him to help. He didn't know that, you know. He didn't know that I really needed that at the time. And you know, and he stepped away and he walked away.
Gotcha.
So for a homeboy, let's just say, Pitt, if you hear this interview, you disappointed me, man. You know, you were close. I don't know the reason why you walked away from it. But I love you, brother, and you don't know, I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of anyone that can work through this matrix and be successful. The odds are working against you in many ways, especially from us coming from South Florida, being Latino, being Cuban, being men of color, men of flavor. I call this the men of flavor, not no bland-ass rednecks and whoever else wants to discriminate. No, we don't discriminate, brother. We use everything in the seasoning cabinet. We use paprika. We use all of it. And there are people that just want to be bland. Now, they can be bland. I never was like that. And for Pitt, he should have understood that. And for me, I got to tell you, you dropped the ball. I was disappointed. You know. And if you get this message, you hear this, holla at me.
I was just gonna say, holla at your boy. Let's get that squashed.
Holla at your boy. So even to this day, so he moved up into the heavens, but sometimes the heavens are very, very cold up there. It's cold. He needs to come back down here where the people are still breathing warm, the warmth of charity and the warmth of, you know, you can say, you know, if I'm the king of freestyle and you grew up on me down there, you didn't know, sometimes the king even needs a hug every once in a while.
Right.
So, like I say, I thought he was going to embrace it. He says it in his interviews all the time that he grew up on freestyle, blah, 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 but he didn't do shit. You didn't do shit. You could have grabbed freestyle. He could have grabbed freestyle right now. He got satellite radio. He plays it. But I'm talking about use his resources. I've reached out to him to do concerts with us. We're doing 8,000 and 10,000 seats arena. I told Pitt, I say, look, I left messages. Me and you do it together. It's like I'm out here by myself sometimes. And I said, let's do it together. You're mega wealthy now. You know, I did okay, but not to the levels that you went. So now you're supposed to be my leader. You're supposed to be the leader of all those Latinos that you say. You can go to Puerto Rico and do hurricane. Well, shit. Freestyle music had a fucking hurricane, too. We had a fucking hurricane, a tornado, and everything else. And there's a whole genre of music here that's just being overlooked. Of course, through the internet and people like yourself who grew up in it, we define the lives of many people, even his. So how could you just turn your back like that and walk away and act like now that you got private jets and shit? Ain't no freestyle artist got no private jets. Most of them can't even afford a private car, let alone a private jet.
Let's talk.
So don't forget your root. Don't forget his roots of the things that influence his life. And I'm just saying that as being on the real. I'm not doing it out of jealousy. Believe me, I don't need shit from Pitt. I'm self-contained. I live in a $2 million house. I got Mercedes-Benz and everything else. What I need, brother, is your appreciation and your love. And your resources will help me realize some of the things that I want to do at 60 years old. He's got a school right here in Vegas, right? That he opened up. In my town. Never invited me one time to come out. You don't know, I was just in Miami last week doing big concerts. Still doing it. These people don't reach out to me. They reach out to the people in their super hyper space.
Yep.
I don't fucking live in hyperspace.
Right.
I live here with my family. I live here with people. I still contact people. Should I contact a few more people and say hi and hello and I love you? Yes, I should. I could do better. But I'm a grown-ass man. I know when I make mistakes. I'm not fucking Donald Trump. I know when I make mistakes, and I know when I can say, hey, to the world. I say it through my music. I ain't never been ashamed to show wear my heart on my sleeve. That's who Stevie B is. If anybody wanted to know what Stevie B is, and sorry for my rant, if anybody want to know who Stevie B is, and you know I'm talking about them, that 1.5 will take you there. Pure love. I love people. I love things. Sometimes I don't love them, but I have the love of my heart that the universe has in it. It shows us every day.
We're going to find out how groups like Shannon and Electric and Hip Hop Records got on the radio in the first place with radio consultant Jerry Clifton. There's nobody really playing it, and old school only digs back to 17 years ago to 2000, it seems now, and you might get some 90s. Do you think now that music has no heart?
No, I just think that it got left behind more or less when I stopped doing it, and when radio stopped, being competitive, generally speaking, the music sort of went back to where it had been before, which was driven by the record companies. So, the concept of programming that I programmed by, I don't think is in existence at this time, and that is to run the radio station from the outside in, from the audience up instead of from the station down.
You can't be hurt by what you don't play. I've heard that from every consultant.
Yeah, that's one of my original stock liners for the station.
But you're out there breaking you're out there doing opposite of that. But that was because you had local research telling you?
Well, the local research told us where to go, and then, that phrase more or less came out of disc jockeys, being upset because we weren't playing My Sharona or something. And, it was like, even though, My Sharona was a great example when I was doing, when I started KGGI in San Bernardino, Riverside, My Sharona was the #1 record that summer, and we never played it. But we did go to #1.
What did you play? So what is that, like an 80, 81, something like that?
That was August 2nd, 1979.
Why do you know that so well? Why do you know that date so well?
I had a lot of my long-term friends we congregated at that station. We hadn't necessarily been friends before, but it was the start of something. KGGI was. So people like Bob West and so on.
Who I spoke to right before our broadcast. I talked to him right before. He video messaged me.
Yeah.
Just got a shot in the back. He was a little jacked up on a pillow, but he did send me he sent me a couple texts. Always respect the music. And as far as playing songs, when in doubt,
leave it out. Yeah, those are you know, as we went along, you know, certain things became over and over and over again. People would, you know, and a lot of times it was the manager of the station or whatever that would say, "I noticed that you're not playing, you know, whatever song. How come?" You know, and basically, you know, we developed a number of one-liners to deal with
counteract
those questions. Yeah.
Did you ever get fired from being that guy? Did somebody ever hire you and go, you know what, I'm just not ready for this?
I had a couple of times that it didn't work out. Once was in, and this was really sad. It was in Ohio somewhere, Dayton, Ohio, I think it was. And the day that we switched format, the most popular sales girl at the station was killed or not killed, but just about killed in a car accident right out in front of the station.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and I mean, she was in a coma for a couple of years. She did come back, you know, and become get well and everything, which was great. But anyway, the station, it just didn't, you know, it wasn't going to work. I mean, they were so upset about what had happened to her. It was like, it was tied to us. It was like these guys came in and then our favorite person got, you know, smashed in a car accident that day. So it was never going to work. It was obvious. It was, the vibe was so bad. It was just unfortunate. So that was one time that it didn't work out.
Bob West tells me that the best music director you ever had was who?
Brian White.
Correct. Why Brian White?
Well, Brian had a really good ear, and Brian, I hired him in San Diego from some little. He was, you know, really excited to come to a major market and so on. And I had developed my music skills as far as finding the hits and so on and so forth. I really had a formula, I guess you would call it, or a playlist or whatever, a game plan. And so I taught him everything that I could teach him, and he learned well. So, you know, we worked together there at DRQ, at 99X in New York.
99X, the Great X Game, Phase 2, the easiest contest to win in the world. The X-Men could be in Brooklyn tonight with 50, 100, and maybe even a $1,000 bill for you. Brian White at Super X at 941. How you doing tonight? 99X. Okay, ready to rip me off right now? Caller number 4. My telephone at 212-354-8600. Rip me off for your favorite LP.
Chicago, and then he became a program director, was the first program director at KGGI in Riverside and other stations as well. So we just had a good relationship. You know, we made a deal with each other that I would never force him to play a record and he would never force me to play a record. It worked great because, you know, we would arm wrestle over it, more or less, you know, for quite a while. I remember at DRQ, he put a bunch of nails in the wall, you know, in different rooms, and he'd have records hanging from the nails, so I would see them when I walked through to the studio and stuff. Where he picked a lot of hits. We played a lot of records first, even though we didn't consider ourselves record breakers. Sometimes it's obvious a hit is a hit. I remember at DRQ we broke "Killing Me Softly" by Roberta Flack, or it was. That was one of them that he heard and brought to me and started promoting me on. We added it 2 or 3 weeks after he started jumping up and down about it, and it went right to the top. So, and there were a lot of them. I mean,
does he ever remind you didn't hear the Roberta Flack?
Oh yeah, of course. There was a record in San Diego. I don't remember what it was. It was some kind of beachy, bubblegummy record that I thought was a hit, and I played it, and it was a stiff. And the guys at the station made up a mock gold record and gave it to me. I think that, you know, one of the big keys to, you know, all of our success was the fact that we were a team. I just had to, you know, play the role of keeping the management out of our hair and stuff like that, and you know, was the leader of the band. But you know, everybody contributed, and we had you know, all the people at the station. I mean, we made most of our decisions as a group, not as you know, not in the back room or in a concert.
You had a music meeting, and it really mattered.
Yeah, we did. And we used to bring people from the outside in to the music meeting. I mean, the whole radio station, not just the music, but everything we did. Whenever I'd have it was on a regular basis that I would have some sort of wacky, crazy idea, I would get everybody together and present it to them. And if they didn't go for it, we just didn't do it. I figured if I couldn't sell it to the staff, I wouldn't be able to sell it to the audience. So I tend to be very aggressive. Always seem to be thinking of how I can take over the world, or how we could get one of our friends to be the president or something, and so I would take my latest idea to the group, and we wouldn't vote on it or anything, but I'd sit there and watch them debate it and listen to what they had to say, and then if it didn't appear to be going well, I would just say, okay, I give up. Back to the drawing board.
Are people afraid of you when you come around the turn, or were you fun to work for?
No. I'm the DJ's biggest fan.
Right.
And I think that's probably why, one of the reasons that it works so well is because I really get it that these guys have a unique talent, and they deserve to be treated with the kind of respect that they should have.
Right.
And, you know, I also figured out, before I became a PD, I realized that the PDs I was working for didn't have a clue and weren't listening, and if they would have listened to me, they would have been successful. I mean, that's the way I felt, and I guess I proved it later, but the point is that, to me, everybody on the air staff has probably just about as good of ability to process and come up with, you know, the right answer as the program director does. So it only makes sense to bring everybody into the fold and let their input be part of the game. It really makes it better. They've, you know, when you decide on doing something, the jocks are for it instead of going, I don't know why we're doing this promotion or whatever. They've already bought in before it goes on the air. You know, it's just the right way to do things. I mean, if anything, the name that I developed over a period of years became, you know, was like in the way in the first few days of anybody's employment, because they thought they'd gone to work for, you know, the ultimate radio guy, and I'm just a guy that runs around in jeans and a t-shirt, and and tries to keep the business part of the radio out of the programming side of the business. You know, and, you know, I learned along the way that if I could keep the salespeople busy, they wouldn't bother us that much. So I was really good at coming up with crazy things for the salespeople to sell to clients when they needed a promotion to sell or whatever. I always could come up with something that was great and would benefit programming. So we did things like had people put their hand on a car in the dealership, and the one that removed their hand the last would win the car. That was a free car we gave away on lots of our stations, and it was paid for by the dealership, not by the station.
Sure.
The manager and I at Miami went to the bank one time, and I tried to talk them into letting us trade out $1 million. We went to Coca-Cola in Atlanta. I went with the national sales manager. This was about, I would say it was around 75. And we went and pitched them because we were giving away lots of T-shirts, and we went and pitched Coca-Cola on paying for our T-shirts and having our logo put on them. And if they did, we would put their logo on one shoulder, on a little round logo. Coca-Cola, it was the year 1976, paid for all the T-shirts that we gave away on all the Bartell stations. It was something like, I don't know, 100,000 T-shirts or something like that. It was outrageous.
And that was probably one of the first times that ever happened?
When you come from the era of radio that I started out in, which was, the 50s and 60s, radio stations didn't have much money. They were local businesses. They didn't have 12 other stations. Most of them only, maybe a few of them had a sister station somewhere, but basically they were alone in their market, and they were owned by a guy that lived right there. In order to get stuff that would help you become successful, you had to be creative. You had to come up with ideas that you could get somebody to pay for.
Oh, I've been doing it for the last 25 years. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, it'd be nice if you could go to work for somebody and they had all kinds of money, but radio has never been that way. Radio went from being, reaching some pretty good revenue positions to being taken over by the huge corporations that wanted to, instead of reinvest the money in the product, they wanted to take the money out for their company. So it never did change from always being under budgeted. It's just the way radio always is and always was and probably always will be. And it's not a bad thing. It just takes hard work and talent and creativity to find stuff that you can, get somebody else to pay for. As an example, in San Diego, when I did the FM station at KSCA, we didn't have a studio. We were broadcasting out of a advertising agency reception area, and we had a closet for a studio. It had been a former closet. It was me and Gene Knight were the two employees. We decided that if we could get it okayed, we would take the station live from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight. And I would do one shift and he would do the other. And we really never got the official okay. We got I think it's a good idea, but I don't know how we could afford to do it. So that was close enough. We went live at the book that came out at the end of this, I think it was spring. We were the number one station, 12 to 34 in San Diego. So then I went to them with what we've done. They weren't bringing it up in any meetings. So I said, look what we've done. We should go live full time. And the manager said, well, we could probably afford, some of your minimum wage disc jockeys, but we don't have any equipment. So I thought about it for a little while, and about an hour or two, and went down to the guy that owned Belmont Park Amusement Park. He was a real user of radio, and I pitched him the idea of building us a studio right inside the entryway to Belmont Park that we would broadcast from, and he decided that was a good idea. He built the studio. He paid for all of the equipment that it took to operate it, and stuff that it took to get it back to the transmitter. So I went back to the manager and I said, well, the part you said we couldn't do, I got it done, and got us a full-time advertiser at the same time. So we went live.
Were you housed in the studios at Belmont Park? Did you have to include any kind of mention in those days, like the MTR of today?
Once an hour when we did the weather, we said, and currently on the beach at Belmont Park, it's 72 degrees.
Right.
It's always 72 degrees in San Diego.
Of course.
So so that's all we did. That's all we had to do. But, I thought of him because he always did for every station in the market, he had a day, the Country and Western KSON day and the KCBQ day, the KGB day, and whatever, let people in for free if they said the call letters or wore a T-shirt or something. Mm-hmm. And so I thought he was always all over the radio. And so I thought, this guy's, he's my first target. He bought into it almost immediately.
You remember his name?
No, I don't. I don't remember his name.
Can you see his face?
Yeah.
A lot of years in radio will do that to you, won't they, Jerry?
I could get some of the songs and some of the years. I used to be really good at it before I started doing lots of stations at the same time. But once you get immersed in it, it's like a big ongoing, never-ending process. It seems like every day is the same day. It's like over and over and over again.
So I found you. You were the station voice on KSJQ and on KROI Sacramento. that three-way battle was going on there when I first got on radio. So I'm at KSJQ board hopping out in the trailer, and you guys are farming the logs. Harley's farming the logs out to the radio station. Was that one of your better teams put together? Bob West, Harley, Good Time, Eric Scott?
Yeah, it was a good one. That was a good one. And my second client that I had as a consultant was KSFM, FM 102. I did them for, 5 years or something like that, and then they decided that they could save, the guy that owned the station, his name was A.J. Krissick, and I would go there about once every 2 months to spend a day or two, at the station. Every time I went there, he would hand me my check. He waited to pay me until I was there, and he would always say, "Now, what is it that you do for us?" Every time. It was like he didn't quite get what it was I was doing, and I thought it was funny. So we started that. Remember, I hired Rick Gillette from a station in Monterey. I said to him when he came up for the interview, and I said, "Are there any other people there at the station that you think would be good?" He said, "Yeah, they're all good." So I think I hired them all. I don't know, most of them.
You killed a radio station to put on a radio station.
Yeah, exactly. The original staff at KSFM was all from, or a bunch of them were from Monterey, which was pretty funny.
This is the Old School Rewind. Share and subscribe now at oldschoolrewind.com, facebook.com/oldschoolrewind, and at oldschoolrewind.com.